Okay, imagine this. You've just started a new job and everything's going great. And then one day you get pulled aside for a quick chat. The topic? Your medical cannabis prescription. What can they ask? What do you have to tell them? And what happens if there is a drug test at work? Today, we're diving into the nitty-gritty of medical cannabis, employment law, and workplace rights here in the UK. This is going to be one video you're not going to want to miss, especially if you're a patient juggling your prescriptions. Before we get started, Happy New Year. I hope you all survived the festive period without too many awkward family moments and without spending all of your money in the Boxing Day sales. Personally, I spent most of my time dodging awkward questions from family members who seem to think medical cannabis is a fancy term for being a stoner. If that was you too, welcome to the club. Now let's get into it. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Medical cannabis has been legal here in the UK since November 2018. This allows certain cannabis-based prescription medicines, or CBPMs, to be prescribed by specialist doctors. So, if you're prescribed medical cannabis, you are using it legally, provided you are following the terms of your prescription. Essentially, that means you're vaping it and not smoking it, as directed by your doctor. However, and this is crucial, cannabis is still classified as a Class B controlled drug under the Misuse of Drugs Act of 1971. That means recreational cannabis is illegal.
Damn, that's some fucked up shit.
And even as a medical patient, you could face issues if your use doesn't align with your prescription. Again, smoking, not vaping. Before I get too deep into it, I do just want to say that everything I talk about today will be linked in the description below. These are the facts. This is not just me hoping for this to be true. I wouldn't put out a video if the facts weren't in place. So, as I say, all links to everything I talk about today will be in the video description, so you can go and check it out for yourself. What are your rights as an employee in the UK? Under the Equality Act of 2010, you are protected if your medical condition qualifies as a disability. A disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term effect on your ability to do everyday tasks. For example, if you're prescribed medical cannabis for conditions such as chronic pain, epilepsy, or PTSD, your employer must make reasonable adjustments to accommodate you. Reasonable adjustments could include flexible working hours, changes to your duties, or even a private space for you to take your medication. I'm sorry to break it to you, but a reasonable adjustment is not going to be you sat in the middle of the staff room building a joint for lunchtime. That is not a reasonable adjustment.
Why not?
But importantly, your employer cannot dismiss or discipline you solely for your medical prescription. Doing that could be classed as discrimination. Okay, I just want to take a quick pause here. If you're finding this video helpful at all, then hit that like button. It helps the channel reach more people and it helps keep me motivated to tackle these tricky subjects for you guys. And while you're at it, drop me a comment if you've had any workplace experiences with your medical prescription, good or bad. Sharing your story might just help someone else. Okay, what are your employer's responsibilities? Employers have a duty of care under the Health and Safety Act of Work of 1974. This is to ensure a safe working environment for all employees. If you disclose your medical prescription to your employer, they must assess whether your medication affects your ability to do your daily tasks. This is particularly important in safety critical roles like driving or operating heavy machinery. Most employers will have a drug and alcohol policy, and it's their responsibility to ensure that this policy accounts for prescribed medications. If you're a medical cannabis patient, the policy should outline how your prescription is managed in terms of drug testing and workplace safety. If your employer doesn't have a clear policy, or if their policy unfairly penalises prescribed medications, it will be worth raising the issue with HR or seeking legal advice.
Call lawyer immediately.
Now, this is a question I get asked quite a lot. Do you have to tell your employer about your prescribed medical cannabis? Legally, you're not required to, unless your medication affects your ability to perform your job safely. For example, if you're in a safety critical role like driving or operating heavy machinery, or even caring for vulnerable individuals, it is in your best interest to disclose your prescription, because transparency allows your employer to make reasonable adjustments and carry out risk assessments. For non-safety critical jobs, disclosure is optional. However, if your workplace conducts drug tests, it's a good idea to inform your employer beforehand, because medical cannabis will still show up as THC in a drug test. And it's much easier to explain your prescription in advance of the drug test rather than if you failed it. Okay, so this one goes out to all the HGV drivers out there. If you're a heavy goods vehicle driver, unfortunately things do get slightly stricter. The DVLA requires you to inform them if you are prescribed medical cannabis. They will assess whether it's safe for you to drive based on your medical condition and your medication. Failing to inform the DVLA could result in serious consequences, including losing your license or facing legal action. If you're in a similar safety critical role, honesty is going to be the best policy. It's better to be safe than sorry. And let's face it, you're not doing anything wrong. This medication is prescribed to you by a doctor. Okay, let's wrap this up with some takeaways. Not those sort of takeaways, Chunky. New year, new me and all that.
Takeaway? That's a good idea.
Okay, key points for employees. 1. Know your rights under the Equality Act of 2010. 2. Be transparent if your role is safety critical or involves random drug tests. And number 3, review your workplace drug and alcohol policy. Now, what must employers make sure they do? They should make reasonable adjustments for anyone holding a medical prescription. They should have a clear and fair drug and alcohol policy that accounts for legally prescribed medications. And they should carry out risk assessments for all safety critical roles. Hopefully you found this video helpful and it clears up any confusion, and hopefully it will give you the confidence to navigate the workplace as a medical cannabis patient. If this has been helpful at all, please feel free to share it, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know the drill. And as I mentioned earlier, I hope you all have a prosperous new year, and 2025 is the stuff that dreams are made of. So before I start getting all emotional, as I did when I watched the Gavin and Stacey finale, Mamma mia, here I go again. We're going to leave it there. As they say on the snowy streets of Ibiza, look after yourselves and each other. And as I always like to say, and it's going to be the first time of the year, first time of 2025, peace out, Cub Scouts. Keep it real, keep it gangster, and keep it gangster again. Until next time, thanks for tuning in for another Medical Mythbuster.